This Week in Startups is brought to you by Upside, the best new way to buy business travel. Visit Upside.com, enter the promo code TWIST, and you're guaranteed to get at least a $100 Amazon gift card after booking your first trip. And WordPress.com. Right now, WordPress is offering you 15% off any new plan purchase. To create your small business website today, visit WordPress.com/twist.
Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about this special episode with a little cold open here. This is when I welcome you to the show. The show's been doing great. Over 150,000 people listen to every episode, and we've done over 700 episodes of This Week in Startups. It's been a great joy of my life to share these conversations with you, and it's been really wonderful. And over the last year, some of you know, I've been writing a book for HarperCollins Business called Angel. It's a new book, and it's about angel investing. It turns out nobody really ever thought to write a book about angel investing. So the book is coming out July 18th. My friend Adeo from the Founders Institute, which is an incubator here in Silicon Valley, asked me to come and speak to his students. I had a copy of the manuscript with me, so I decided, hey, maybe I'll read a couple of chapters and take questions from the audience, and I even took a couple of pitches. And the pitch session, which is towards the end, came out really good because the pitches, as they often are for early stage companies, were a little rough, and I helped the founders make them a little bit better. So this is a real treat. You're going to get to, if I do say so myself, you're going to get to hear for the first time just a couple of chapters from my book, Angel, coming out July 18th. And you can go search for it online and find it over at HarperCollins' website and pre-order if you want to. And it was great. I got a great reaction from it, which felt good. I put a lot of effort into the book, and you're going to be hearing more about it. We're going to be doing some more episodes where I read chapters from it and discuss those chapters. But here's a little sneak peek at Angel the book at the Founders Institute. Enjoy.
All right, let's do a big round of applause for Jason Calvert.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, everybody. Laptops closed, iPhones away. We'll be present. We're going to talk for about 30 minutes and answer your questions for another 20. Does that sound about right, Adeo?
Sure.
Okay.
You want to go a little longer?
I'll talk for an hour, take your questions for 2 hours. We'll see. Let's all be present. You need to be present as a founder. That means putting down your Twitter, your email, and being reactionary to the world. You need to pause for a second, close your phone, stop texting people, and pay attention. Eyes up front. Why? Because even when I get boring, and it will be boring at times, it'll open your mind up and give a founder room for other ideas to enter. The biggest mistakes founders make, how many people in the room are founders? Raise your hand. Great. Is they get manic. They get manic. And they get into a reactionary position, replying to emails, replying to tweets, replying to tickets on Trello or whatever you use for your project management. And what founders don't realize is a lot of times what you need is downtime and space in your brain for ideas and for revelations and for insights to happen. That's what the next hour is going to be for y'all, is to just consider some of the things I'm saying. Think about your own business in that time. Maybe some boredom happens, and in that space of boredom, maybe you'll have a breakthrough. That's why they say the best ideas sometimes happen in the shower or during a long walk. How many people have had an amazing idea when they were bored? Raise your hand if this has happened to you. Great. The other group hasn't had a great idea yet. So that's because you need to not be reacting to everything going on. Adeo, thank you for the amazing introduction. That was very kind. Adeo is an indefatigable entrepreneur, and we've been friends for a long time with a shared passion, which is trying to create things in the world that make a difference. And that's really at the core of what entrepreneurs are. They're the people who decide that they're not just going to have an idea, but they're going to take that idea and actually have it manifest itself in a product, service, and company. And what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is a little bit about the other side of the table, what angel investors are thinking about. How many people in the room would like to have money? Raise your hand if you like money for your startup. Right. This is when I talk to founders, and I've been on both sides of the table my whole life. I was on the other side of the table for most of my life. In the last 6 years, I've been angel investing. I've invested in 150 companies. I invest in about 30 a year. And I've actually started to think about what it means to invest in a company, and talked and spent a lot of time with founders. Obviously, I've had 4 companies I've invested in have become unicorns, and one of them has become a decacorn. And I've got a pretty good track record so far in terms of returns. And I've got a lot of insights into what angel investors should do and how they should approach the work. Angel investing is something that's really only become a profession in the last decade. Before that, there were people who angel invested if their friends annoyed them enough and ground them down, but typically what happened would be you would all have a great idea, you'd write a business plan. If it was the 80s or 90s, you'd bring your business plan to Sand Hill Road, you'd talk to people, and a bunch of MBAs who would never run a business would emasculate and or torture you for some period of time and maybe give you $3, $4, $5 million for 30 or 40% of your company and control of your company, and then you maybe would have the chance to release a product. Now, we all know it costs $25,000 to release a product in the wild, or you could do it in 2 weeks if you have sweat equity. And so things have changed. A lot more angel investors are out there. There's probably 1,000 people in Silicon Valley who do angel investing for a living. And what I mean by that is they don't have any other job. They're not a Facebook engineer who has a bunch of RSUs who's investing, 3 or 4 times a year. They actually look at this as their career, and it's a profession now. And so I wrote a book called Angel. It's about angel investing, if you didn't get it from the title. And it's just a story of how I turned that first $100,000 I invested in into over $100 million. And that was specifically through 2 mega hits, Thumbtack, which I was the 2nd or 3rd investor in, and Uber, which I was the 3rd or 4th investor in. Of course, I missed 2 other investments at that same exact time. One of them, my friend Evan, said, Jason, I want to show you my new project. We're having brunch, and I said, okay, Evan, show me the new project. He said, take out your BlackBerry and text to 40404, join Jason at Jason. And I said, okay, I joined. And he goes, now Biz is going to text 40404, what are you having for brunch? And then I'm going to answer that and you're going to follow at EV, and I'm having the tofu scramble, and he's having the Benedict. And then I looked at him, I said, Evan, you created Blogger, now you're doing this tweeter thing. It's so stupid. I don't care what Biz is having for breakfast. You took the blog post and you got rid of the blog post. You left the title of the blog post. Do you realize if this succeeds, every idiot in the world is going to be tweeting fragments of a sentence all day long? It's going to be complete fucking chaos, and it's going to be all these people who shouldn't be writing are going to be writing and capturing everybody's attention. Would never invest in Twitter. And if I had, my book would be how I turned $100,000 into $200 million. $200 million, right? So you make mistakes. You can't be perfect at it. And entrepreneurs typically need 2 things. This is what I hear, the number 1 and the number 2 things they need. I need money, I need investment. And number 2, I need growth. This is if you have an idea, and plenty of entrepreneurs with ideas. Everybody has ideas. In fact, a smart person probably has 10 great $1 million ideas a week, and a really smart person probably has a $100 million idea every day. Deo probably has a $1 billion idea every day. But ideas mean nothing. And even execution, which used to be everything, is now being commoditized to a certain extent, because you can go on the internet and learn all the tricks. Go on Quora, you can go to an incubator, all the tricks are out there. So then what's left? Well, focus, being able to raise the capital and be able to scale the company. If I asked all of you to go to your separate corners for 48 hours and make the next great photo sharing app, we'd probably have a couple come back in a weekend that were pretty good. Then it'd be who could actually sustain and grow that product and hit some level of scale. So the name of the game is raising money. The name of the game is scaling your businesses. Everybody can put out a good product today. If you can't put out a good product today, something is really wrong. You probably should not be an entrepreneur. And in fact, you should be able to put out a great product. There's so many resources out there that it is now table stakes. It's now the default to be able to put out a great product. We were living in the age of excellence for the last 5 or 10 years, when the excellent products were the ones that captured people's attention. They stood out. Now, gosh, I see a lot of stuff on product every day that looks pretty excellent, and it gets drowned out in the noise. And Product Hunt, what's put up on Product Hunt in a day today, or AngelList and other sites like that in a day, would have been 5 or 10 years ago what was put out in a month or a quarter. The velocity of things being released is greatly increasing. Hey everybody, I want to tell you about a brand new service called Upside.com. My assistant Jess has been using it here, and it is awesome. You go to Upside.com and you book your hotel and your flight together, and they give you an Amazon gift card for between $100 and $300. Yes, if you are booking your hotel and your airline ticket together, your flight and your hotel together, that saves a lot of money for you, and they pass that along in the form of an Amazon gift card. If you're a frequent biz traveler, your company saves a bunch of money, and you can get thousands of dollars a year just by buying your air and hotel together at Upside.com. Plus, you'll still get all your miles, so there's no issue there. And it takes about 3 minutes, or less actually, I did it less than 3 minutes, to see how much you can save by buying your flights and hotel together for one low price. So here is your call to action. Please go to Upside.com and enter the promo code TWIST, and you will get at least a $100 Amazon gift card for free for your first trip. It is a no-brainer. Save big on travel and get a big gift card every trip. That call to action, one more time, go to Upside.com and use the promo code TWIST. It's great to have you as a partner on the podcast. Thanks a lot to Upside for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Okay, speaking of which, let's get back to this amazing episode. So I'm going to read you a chapter from the book, and then you're going to ask some questions. Then I'll read you another chapter, you ask some questions, and we'll just keep doing that till Adeo stops us. How does it sound? Good? Okay. So I'm going to read you chapter 14. And this is about pitch meetings. How many people have been to an investor pitch meeting? Raise your hand if you've been to an investor pitch meeting. Good. Keep your hand up if you've been to one in the last 60 days. Great. So some people are actively pitching. Chapter 14, my best and worst pitch meetings. If you're doing it right, your days as an angel investor will be packed with pitch meetings. Like anything in life, though, no matter how unique and special those days are, they can become repetitive, and you can develop bad habits, unprofessional tendencies, and even outright contempt. When I was younger, I worked on a volunteer ambulance in Brooklyn, 1 or 2 overnights a week. I started as a dispatcher and eventually became an EMT, an emergency medical technician. It was a rush when the phone rang in our headquarters, sometimes waking us up from a light sleep, and other times forcing us to drop our bagels and rush to the bus. We'd fire up the lights and sirens as we rushed into the night to see where we would land on the roulette wheel of scared, suffering, dying, and sometimes dead people. It was so impressive to me when we worked on my first couple of patients that some of the older, more experienced EMTs could do their work with a level of calm that reminded me of a Jedi Knight. On the other side of the spectrum, it was disturbing to watch many senior EMTs cracking jokes, breaking protocol, and often being rude to patients and their families. When you spend time in a role, whether it's being a pilot, an EMT, or an investor, you're going to develop strong habits. To be successful, it's important that you develop good habits and be aware of the bad ones. Founders always share investor meeting details with each other, and your reputation is everything in our industry. If you are helpful, present, and considerate, there's that word present again, then you're going to get a great reputation. If you are unprofessional, cavalier, or conceited, or use your position of power in any way that isn't in service of the founder, then you're toast. You might wind up on the funding. Great founders have many options to fund their companies, and your $25,000 isn't any different from mine or another investor's. But how a person feels coming out of an investor meeting will determine whether you're getting in or missing out. The best and worst investor meetings I've pitched. When I had the idea for my second company, I wanted to know if venture capitalists would be interested in funding it. I emailed 2 firms and 1 angel a 2-line email message telling them that I was starting my next company after having sold my last one for $30 million to AOL, just 18 months after starting it. I figured if I kept it absurdly short and stated how quickly I sold my last business, it would intrigue those investors and they would respond. The first VC was Michael Moritz of Sequoia Capital, and he responded to my email, called my desk phone, and left a message on my mobile phone within a few hours. Yep, the greatest venture firm in the world, who made early investments in startups like Google, Apple, Cisco, and YouTube, replied to my email 3 different ways the same day. The reason that Sequoia is, far and away, the greatest venture firm of all time. Oh, there's a reason. Mark Cuban, who had invested $300,000 in my first company, also responded in the same day. And so did John Doerr of Kleiner Perkins. Within weeks, I had multiple meetings at both firms. Sequoia gave me a term sheet, Kleiner gave me a verbal commitment to a 2-phase funding, and Mark committed to me on the spot. 3 great firms, 3 said yes. And all of them were absurdly quick to follow up. However, here's where things got interesting. John Doerr fell asleep in our meeting. While we were doing the Q&A session, John's eyes fluttered shut, and he startled right back awake. Everyone in the room, including myself, said nothing. In fact, we all pretended not to notice because, well, JD is a legend. This is the cat who invested in Google, Netscape, Sun, and Amazon. He's venture royalty. That wasn't the only bizarre thing. John had a scratch on his head that he touched a couple of times, and his arm was in a sling. Nothing was broken, he wasn't bleeding, but he just didn't seem right. When I left the room, one of his partners pulled me aside and apologized. He told me John had taken a spill on his bike this morning and was bruised up. He was on pain medication, and his partners asked him not to come to the office, but he did anyway. Holy fucking shit. In spite of a bike crash, JD showed up for my pitch meeting on pain meds. That's why he's a billionaire. Now, as I'm wrapping up this investment, a smaller firm, which I was told passed on the Google investment that Sequoia had made, got wind that I was closing a deal with Sequoia from one of my angel investors. Let's call them Extra Ventures. They asked me if they could lob a term sheet in, a formal offer to invest. I told them that I had already made my decision, but I would be still willing to meet with them. The meeting with a young partner, who I won't name here, was wildly enthusiastic. He told me things went so well, he wanted me to meet with his partners at their next partner meeting. Although I was living in Los Angeles, out of a courtesy to my angel investor friend, I flew to San Francisco to attend the partner meeting at Extra Ventures on Sand Hill Road, right next to Stanford University. I figured I can meet with them and then go to Sequoia, a few buildings away, to visit Roelof Botha, the new partner who was just joining my board. There was no Uber back then, so after an absurdly early morning flight, I dragged my tired butt over to Hertz and collected my car. I hadn't gotten much sleep, and I'm not a morning person, so getting up at 5 a.m. and all the travel had me on tilt already. As I was starting my car, I saw they got a new voicemail when I was in the air. It was the young VC who had set up the meeting at Extra Ventures, the second-rate VC firm that I had flown up to pitch. The junior partner said that he had talked to the senior partners, and they had concluded that my startup wasn't a fit, so I didn't need to come in and meet with them today. What? My blood boiled and the Irish came out at me, and I decided that I was going to confront this partner, as insane, as embarrassing as this is to write. In person, at his office, right now, in the middle of his partner meeting. When I got to their office, the receptionist asked me who I was there to see. I told her, and even pointed to him in the big conference room, where he was sitting with a dozen people in the partner meeting. He turned white. His partners all looked over at me, and he came rushing out. "Didn't you get my message? Our meeting was canceled. I'm so sorry." I proceeded to tell him exactly how clueless I thought he was, and that I would tell every founder I knew how I had been treated. He implored me to calm down and offered to take me for sushi. I am not proud of my reply. "You're so stupid that you didn't consider that I was flying up, wasting a day of my life and hundreds of dollars for our meeting?" He cut me off. "You're right, I'm so sorry." I couldn't relent. In my younger days, I had a horrible habit, back to those habits, of needing to explain to stupid people just how stupid they were. I've since learned that the best way to deal with stupid people is to not to have them anywhere near your company, and if possible, even in your life. My lobby rant continued. Here's how stupid you are. You didn't have to cancel on me. You could have simply let me pitch, patted me on the head, and then told me how brilliant my idea was. Then tell me you couldn't reach consensus with your partners the day after our meeting. "You're right," he said. To this day, that entire episode, both the needless canceling of my meeting, once I had already traveled to their town, and my own angry antics in the lobby, has informed how I conduct my meetings with founders. Because now I'm on the other side of the table writing the checks and managing entrepreneurs' egos. Let's get into that, shall we? All right, that's chapter 14. Hey everybody, let me tell you about a product I've been using for over 10 years. It's WordPress.com. Small business owners, WordPress.com is saluting you. They know you're out there making a big difference, creating jobs, and creating great products and services. WordPress is the perfect solution to build your website and keep it up to date. They are powering more websites with WordPress than any other platform. They've been at this for a long time. I've known Matt Mullenweg forever. He's been on this podcast, I think, 3 times. He's a fantastic founder. And that's why I use WordPress on calacanis.com and this very site, thisweekinstartups.com. They provide great design features and 24-hour support. 7 days a week. You can pick from 350 easy-to-use themes. Just pick a domain, select a plan, and start building. It's mobile-friendly, super easy to use. Go to wordpress.com/twist, wordpress.com/twist, and you will be able to create your small business website today, and you'll get 15% off any new plan purchase. That's right, 15% off wordpress.com/twist. It's a great product and a great founder and a great team over there. So go ahead and visit wordpress.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Questions about meetings?
Hi, my name is Hoda. Thank you very much for your book. You do have a beautiful writing style. I really enjoyed it. So actually, my little pitch is that we help people invest in the stock market with less mistakes in less than 5 minutes. My question is, how can we break this but this model of doing 3 minutes pitch and being compared with thousands of different people? To me, it looks like sending your resume on like a if you were looking for a job, question. Right? So how do we break that as a founder?
Sure.
Thanks.
It's a great question. Thank you for it. And for those folks who didn't hear it, I'll summarize it as such. God, there's a lot of people doing the same thing. How do you stand out? There's a lot of people who are given the opportunity to maybe give a 3-minute pitch, but how do you stand out? There are a number of ways to stand out. I believe that performance is the number one way to stand out today. If you asked me 5 years ago, I might say design. I might say a beautiful product, right? And the UX of it. But I do think that we've started to have parity on beautiful UX, right? If you look at the state of the art today, Facebook is not coming up with their own ideas. They're literally just taking Snapchat's ideas. Evan Spiegel is their product manager at Facebook now. And they just literally iterate on whatever Snapchat comes out with. That's what the industry has devolved into, is just everybody iterating on each other's work. So there's a lot of parity there. But engagement in your product and the passion of your early user set and a chart of some key piece of data are critical. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. What data shows to an investor is that you are a considered person who understands how to build products and companies. Not just the product, but really the company. So if you can say, well, we have an exercise app. And it has this many daily active users and monthly active users and sessions, that's fine. But if you said, I have an exercise app, and we're actually recording how many reps everybody does and how many different exercises people do. Because what we found is when people do more than 10 different exercises in our app, they wind up having a 50% greater chance of becoming a paid member. So everything we do is about getting them to that 8th, 9th, and 10th different kettlebell workout so they feel like they're learning. When I say that, I've now distinguished myself from the other fitness apps who are only talking about DAOs and MAOs. Slack had one, which was, how many users are there in Slack? How many users are using your Slack channel at your company? Great. How many messages per user? How many chat rooms? How many active rooms? This is what the real companies are looking at. Okay, how many DAOs do you have? How many monthly actives do you have? Okay, how many daily actives do you have? Okay, can now we divide those two numbers? Can we increase them? Can we see what percentage of the MAOs are coming back every day? So you can put yourself in a whole different bucket. And the way I look at it, being an entrepreneur, you're in a room with all these other founders. It is a zero-sum game. Anybody in here a millennial? Anybody under the age of 30? Raise your hand if you're under the age of 30. Nice and high. Great. I know that they told you you were a unique snowflake, that you're very special. And I'd like to confirm for you that you are a unique snowflake and that there is no other snowflake like you. You're so unique. You are a beautiful, precious snowflake in a huge fucking blizzard. So while there's none like you, there are so many that none of us could even count them. That's how brilliant y'all are. It is a zero-sum game. The trophy you got, along with the other 12 members of your team, was, in all likelihood, you deserved yours, but the other 12 didn't. There can be only one MVP. There can be only one person I invest in the next 2 or 3 weeks, because it takes time. I have a limited amount of attention. So you have to take yourself out of the bucket of average, put yourself into the bucket of above average, and then to elite. I don't think you can jump buckets. It's going to take time. But if you find those signals, and data is one of them, you'll put yourself in 2017 into the right bucket. Another question?
Yeah,
there.
so I just, you talked about meetings, but you opened the whole book with the email, the one-line or 2-line email, which is beautiful. But I don't know if that would work today. So I mean, I'm sure you get like a zillion emails. In fact, I have a reply that's like, don't bother emailing me because it's kind of useless.
Obnoxious auto reply.
All right.
I have the Tim Ferriss, Dave McClure,
right.
Gary Vaynerchuk,
But you
Chris
must
Sacca.
read some of the emails. So what
I actually read all of them.
Okay.
I put the
So what
responder
is
on.
my question is
Yeah.
what breaks through
Yeah.
the clutter?
It's a great question. What breaks through? So I put the autoresponder on, but then I read every message. So the autoresponder is a way to just first level filter and make the people who are easily dissuaded become dissuaded. Because if a email that says I get too many emails to read every one dissuades you, you've put yourself in the bucket of too weak to take my money. You're too weak for us to work together. If that stops you, pretty weak. So for me, if somebody sends me a chart, if somebody sends me a link to a gorgeous product, if somebody is referred by a founder I've invested in or an investor I co-invested with, these are great signs. Data, link to a product video. I'll tell you the bad signs. I want to get coffee with you. I want to have lunch with you. I want to buy you a cup of coffee. I want to buy you a lunch. We're not in the culinary space. We're not baristas. We're not making coffee here. We're making startups. Let's talk about what matters. What matters is data. What matters is your product. What matters is your customers. So if you send an email to me that says, I would love to get lunch with you and chew your ear and get your advice on this, well, know your target. You're talking to a top 10 angel investor in the industry right now, not me 7 years ago when I had no investments. So you have to know, like, okay, this is a new angel investor who has time, but this is another one who's super busy. There's a better way to get to that one. So getting to Chris Sacca with a cold email, unless you have the nuts, in other words, you can turn over in cards like a really great hand, which would be charts and data, you probably want to try to maybe have a better target, right? Things that really don't work are long emails about your ideas. What does work? A customer. I just signed our 8th customer in 12 weeks. They're paying us $5,000 a month for our enterprise software. It took us 6 weeks to build this software, and we're 2 developers out of Stanford. We're 2 developers who taught ourselves to code, and we're 20 years old, and we're going to be in town for these days. Would love to meet you for a cup of coffee, but now the cup of coffee is the 8th thing after data, performance. If you don't have performance, why are you emailing me? That's like me trying out for the Knicks. Like, dear Phil Jackson, I really think that I could be the point guard of the Knicks. It's like, no, if you were going to be the point guard of the Knicks, he would have scouted you at the McDonald's Open. Like, get back into the gym. You have to know when to email people. And the big mistake is emailing somebody too early. Wait until you have something good to send them. Data, performance, customers. Features? Meh. It better be a hell of a feature. It better be incredibly on target. Now, if something's on target, that's different. So another huge mistake, I'm going to email somebody who says they are a robotic and AI investor about my consumer photo sharing app. And that spray and pray, I'm going to email everybody. It's incredibly stupid. But if you email them and say, I know that you invested, Jason, in Butterfly, Birdie, and now CafeX. Clearly, you are into hardware, and you don't see that as a limitation of a startup. And I went to the CafeX machine and I ordered coffee there. I was actually surprised at how flawlessly it went. And I saw your interview with the CEO of Birdie, and you discussed with him manufacturing and what the actual costs were. We're very similar to those companies that all of a sudden it's like, well, this person's talking about me and my approach, right? So this, again, being present. There's a couple of women in the audience here. It's actually good to see a lot of female founders here. It's great. You're not one of them. You're a man. I'll get to your question in a minute. Thank you. I wonder if any of the ladies ever went.
I think he had a question.
We'll get his question in a second. I wonder if the women in the audience have ever been on a date with a man who never asked you one question or listened to what you said, but then told you how amazing their job was as an insurance broker and all their incredible victories. Any women ever have that experience? The man who just didn't listen to you at all? Anybody in a relationship like that right now? No, don't raise your hand. Okay. Dea's girlfriend just raised her hand. Sorry, Dea. So anyway, being present enough to research the person you're emailing is so critical. So critical. My life is people coming up to me, telling me about their companies. Once in a while, somebody's really savvy and they go, you know, I saw episode 721 and I'm like, what's episode 721? They're like, oh, well, you interviewed this person and you said this. I thought that was a really interesting moment because, and then they thread it into their startup. It's like, oh, well, that's well played. Right? Okay, sir, you have a question. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming for this event. And my name is Masaki.
Masaki.
Yeah, I'm a former Microsoft support engineer and then volunteer to be an entrepreneur to make the world a better place. And I've been seeing your weekend startup on the YouTube. Weekend.
Clearly, you're a man of refined taste. Continue.
Yeah, I saw you interview talking with the Doerr, also Gagan Biani, so many other great founders too. And I so inspired. And I have this question. So you say about meeting, and then which has been cancelled from your from host, and then you didn't notice. So you said. You did the old-fashioned way to solve the problems. So my question is, what is your current way or current solution to dealing with those like absence of anything that people can make besides you as an investor?
So that's actually a good segue into the next chapter, which is how to behave in meetings. So let's go into the next chapter. Okay, chapter 15.
Is this the new Jason way?
Well, now I'm on the other side of the table, but yes. This is with decades of experience comes some wisdom and learning. What to do before a pitch meeting. Now you understand this is for angel investors. So I'm showing you what the discussion is amongst angel investors, which is super important. When you're thinking about, a meeting, you want to know how the other person is thinking, right? You should allocate 3 hours for each startup meeting. 1 hour of prep, 1 hour with the founders, and 1 hour of postmortem. If you're going to meet with a founder, you need to do some research on them. This includes reviewing their product, understanding the market they operate in, knowing who their competitors are, and knowing who else has already invested in their company. Some of this information is freely available. Some of it is in their deck, and sometimes it doesn't exist publicly. Facebook was far from the first social network, so there was a lot of opportunity for research. In fact, they had a number of well-established competitors like MySpace, LinkedIn, and Friendster. So even if you couldn't use the Facebook product because it was limited to folks at certain colleges and required an EDU email address, you could still study the space in advance of a pitch meeting. For Uber or Airbnb, where they created, or at least transformed their markets, it was harder to do research. What Ford and your local car service did had little to do with what Uber was doing. And your classic hotel guests weren't the types who stayed in Airbnb in the early days, back when the service was for adventurous people who thought staying in other people's homes, surrounded by their creepy knickknacks, was appealing. That said, if you took just one ride in Uber or gasp, stayed at someone's Airbnb for as little as an hour, you would have done so much more research than many folks who invested in those two companies. And you would have impressed the hell out of the founders. Remember, your competition doesn't take meetings with founders seriously because they think, incorrectly, that they have the power. Your challenge isn't writing the checks. It's convincing the right founders to cash them. Chapter 16, what to do during a pitch meeting. 1 hour minimum. You should dedicate a full hour for your in-person meetings. This signals to a founder that you take them seriously enough to spend time understanding their business. These days, I not only take a full hour for meetings, I leave 30 minutes open after it just in case they keep going. I let founders talk and talk until they are tired of talking. I've had many meetings that last 2 hours and some of them that have broken that mark. I'm not kidding. The reason I do this is I want to be known for always having time for founders. People tell me, I know you're really busy. I don't want to keep you. But it's my job to meet with the founders. There's nothing I love more. And those aren't just words. It's absolutely true. I love talking to people about their ideas, their products, and their vision for our future. The only thing I love more than that professionally is actually developing the ideas and being on the winning team myself. My poker pals bust my balls relentlessly by introducing me as an investor in Wealthfront, Uber, and Thumbtack before I get to mention it myself. Here's another way to look at your time. If you take a meeting, it makes little difference if it's 30 or 45 or 60 minutes because you're doing 2 hours of research and communication in addition to the meeting. If you do a 30-minute meeting, you spent 2.5 hours on a startup. If you meet for an hour, you spent 3 hours. There's no difference when you look at it holistically, is there? Give them your full attention. Now, when you get into the meeting, you should check your phone one last time. Let them know if you have a hard stop and ask them how they would like to run the meeting. Here's what I say. Would you like me to run through your deck, show me your product, or just talk about your business? This flips the script they are used to. My contemporaries are known for dictating to investments how they should do their meetings, as in the investors' meetings. That's reasonable. Each investor has their process. But I look at those other investors and think, how can I be more valuable than they are? I remember one time I saw my friend Dave McClure, who is a self-admitted scatterbrain, grab a laptop from a founder, flip it around, take control of the keyboard, and start rifling through the deck. Another time at my launch festival, a conference where startups pitch themselves to get into my incubator, he wouldn't stop tweeting and was not paying attention to a founder who was on stage pitching. Dave was one of our expert judges. Now, while we are not the strictest of competitors, as most angel deals have a dozen investors these days, we both develop brands in the world designed to increase our deal flow. If Dave's brand is distracted, my brand is laser focused. Bringing pen and paper. So when you get to a meeting, look at it like you're being videotaped, and it will be on the local news that night. Show up focused with a notebook and pen so you can take notes, like an adult. Never take notes on your laptop, and certainly don't be that guy who takes notes on their tablet with a stylus. For the love of God, never take notes on your smartphone. You will look like a clueless idiot. Adults take notes on paper and review them later. If you take notes in a book, you are signaling this person that their product and vision are worthy of being commemorated in your journal for all time. Activate silent mode. When the meeting starts, say, let me take a moment to turn off my phone. Important people have the ability to turn off their phones because the world can wait for them. People who are not important have to react to their phone and be at the mercy of people pinging them. If you haven't figured this out in life yet, it's okay. It took me a while to figure this out. Coffee shops are a last resort. It is, for people who can't see it, Doerr just took out his extremely stupid stylus and pen. like he's an artist. I mean, unless you were literally doing art or like building a house with it or like a designer, there's no reason. It is permissible for the meeting to take place at a cafe. But if you're going to do this professionally, a proper conference room is required. In fact, if you're writing checks and don't have a conference room available, it makes me wonder why not. Ever since I started going to meetings with people like Barry Diller, who has crisp, sharpened pencils and pads in the middle of the table, or an elite bank at the elite banker Allen and Company, where they have a button that allows them to call a waiter without you ever knowing it. I've been obsessed with conference room prep. In our conference room, we have fresh pressed juices, a snack basket, phone chargers, pads, pens, and every dongle you can think of to hook up your phone. My assistant or chief of staff escorts our guests to the room, sets up their computers, and tests it before our meeting starts, and critically asks them if we can get them a hipster coffee or tea from one of San Francisco's many elite roasters. I want folks to feel like meeting with me is like going to a restaurant with multiple Michelin stars. I want folks to understand that we are professionals. I'm not trying to impress folks with expensive offices, but I do want to impress upon them that they are meeting with the best angel investor in the world, even if I'm only in the top 5 or 10 right now. The details matter. The best interview questions are the ones you didn't write. Over time, I've learned that your best next question is hidden in the subject's answer to your last question. I've interviewed thousands of people as a journalist, podcaster, and investor. And in that time, the best interviews are the ones that morph into conversations. In a conversation, you don't have a list of questions to run through. You have a discussion partner who you volley ideas back and forth with. The more you listen to the partner and really take in what they are saying, the greater conversationalist you will be. Sure, I've given you important questions to ask in this book, see Chapter 18, but those questions are not as important as your ability to listen. Being present and keeping your mouth shut is something that does not come naturally to successful people. But I see it often in the most successful people I know. I've pushed the envelope on this technique while interviewing subjects for my podcast. One time, taking a live wire of a subject and simply saying 1 or 2 words inquisitively, like solar, food production. Never say yes or no during a pitch. There is no reason to say yes or no during a meeting. I've done it and I've regretted it. If you say yes or no during a pitch meeting, you're going to seem impulsive and not considered, which is a bad look for an angel who should be wise and methodical. Founders are very charismatic and so convincing that they can get people to follow them to build things on spec or for half the salary they would normally command. The superpower that most founders have in common is persuasiveness. And that superpower fades as you leave their reality distortion field. It weakens even more over time. Good founders will ask you straight up, are you in? Or, how much would you like to invest? Your best response is, this has been great. Give me a couple of days to give it some thought and let's talk on Monday. I may have some follow-up questions on email as well. After you do that, set a to-do list item for Monday and let them know if you're in or out. Of course, if you choose to meet with the founders 2 or 3 more times, by all means, feel free to give them news in person during a follow-up meeting. Questions?
Nothing wrong with the tablet, bro.
Sorry, I always have lots of questions. Thanks again for taking it. So on the other side, when we're sitting on the other side, what is the best way to follow up to meet your expectation as a founder? Yeah.
So I think one of the things I like to do is know much more about the person I'm meeting with than they know about me. So I research and research and research the person. I will listen to an interview with them. I will scroll back to 2010 and 2011 on their Twitter. You can do that with the search operator. Look at their LinkedIn. Look at who they're connected to on their LinkedIn. See what friends we have in common on Facebook. I'll look at who their colleagues are. I'll look at their portfolio. I'll Google their last startup. I'll Google search their name with an operator that says before 2015. Let's see if they were in the news before then and for what. So I think doing that diligence when you come into a meeting and knowing where the person went to college. Who knows where I went to college? Nobody.
I should.
My Emmy award-winning producer Jackie does. But anyway, the point is, y'all would love to get a check from me, right? It's money. You have startups. Even if it wasn't for me, you'd want money. But none of you know where I went to college. Nobody researched the speakers tonight. That's because you're rookie. What's that?
Fordham?
Correct. Thank you. One person knew. But you have 4 speakers here tonight. Adeo told you about these speakers when? A week ago? Today? Yesterday?
They're on the site. You're on the site.
But none of you ever did any research, in all likelihood. How many people researched the speakers tonight? In all honesty, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're all liars. No, you may not be lying. But the point is, I think having massive research puts you at a super advantage. The next thing I like to do as a founder, going back to the other side of the table where you sit now, is I like to say, Adeo, I know you're busy, and I want to be respectful of your time. I can run you through my deck, and I have 2 versions of it, a short version and a detailed version. The short version takes about 10 minutes, detailed version takes about 20, and you could ask me questions during it, or I can just show you the product, and we can just have a conversation. What works best for you, Adeo? Now, what have you told the investor? That you have high emotional intelligence, and that you're respectful, and that you're savvy, and that you realize that they have needs as well. Oh my God, this person, if I invest in them, and we have a disagreement about the stock option plan for employees, is not going to be insufferable. They'll actually say, what are your concerns about the stock option plan? Let's see if we can work it out. You are demonstrating, it's an audition. So in that audition, if you have spelling errors or you're not concise or honest, we get it in our heads, right? And so one of the worst things you can do on your side of the table as a founder is if you're in a meeting and I say, so tell me, what are the key metrics for your business? And you mentioned a metric. Oh, so how many daily active users do you have? And you say, oh, well, we've got 100,000. And I say, oh, you had 100,000 today? No, that was our record day, actually. We were featured in the Apple Store 3 months ago, and we had 100,000 that day, but today we had 1,500. And I'm like, okay, so this person is going to selectively pick out information like this, and I have a couple of these kind of stories in the book where I'm playing detective with the founder to figure out what the truth is. Well, startups are hard enough. If the founder is being dishonest with the investor, oh my God, now we've added a whole nother layer of complexity. We're in a massively competitive space, trying to put out a new product, and we're under-resourced, and it's massively competitive, and we're in a competition for ideas, time, talent, and money, and we're not being straight with each other? Oh my God. So practicing how you answer questions, and being able to say, when they say, how do you make money? Saying, we're not trying to make money in 2017. 2017, we're trying to really work on product market fit, and we're trying to increase engagement in the product. But in 2018, we believe there's 2 different ways we can make money. One is with a subscription model, and the second is taking a percentage of the transaction. So it's going to be a classic marketplace where we take a percentage, or we're going to do it as a SaaS business, and we're going to let the data tell us which one to do. I'm curious, what do you think we should do? Now it's like, wow, this person is so considered and honest. I want to hang out with them. You have to remember, investors have their choice, especially the good ones, of who to work with. And they can pass on a company that's $1 billion company and not have it impact their returns. They can pass on a Google or a Facebook or an Uber. They can pass on one of those and hit an Airbnb or a Cisco or a Google or an Apple, right? Like, you don't have to hit every one. So if they look at you and go, wow, this person is insufferable and I don't want to work with them, or they're dishonest, they'll just discount you immediately. So now what you're trying to do is, again, back to the buckets we talked about earlier, founder buckets. Here you are in this middle bucket of unknown. If you answer dishonestly, now you're putting yourself in the unfundable bucket. If you answer concisely and you act considered in the meeting, now you're moving into the bucket of potentially fundable. And then there's another bucket over here, which is, I have to fight like a dog to get into this. Oh my God, I can't miss this. That's where you really want to be. Hard to get there. So I usually suggest, don't discount yourself. Don't disqualify yourself from a self-inflicted wound, dishonesty, stupidity, not having data, approaching people at the wrong time, and then just try to get yourself into the potentially funded bucket. That's hard enough. Just getting in the game, because if you get into that bucket, then the person might say to you, you know what, not a fit right now, but let's stay in touch. And then you have this optionality. They haven't discounted you, they haven't disqualified you. They actually are kind of like, okay, let's stay in touch and prove it to me. Another question. Wait for a microphone.
Would you be open to hearing some pitches?
For sure.
Okay.
Hi, Jason. My name is Bert Vick. My company, Rev Genomics, is a marijuana biotechnology company. But my question is,
Sure.
Whenever you're doing your due diligence on founders, how do you, let's say they've started a few companies and they've had a few small successes and some big failures, how do you sort of view all of that sort of data in toto?
So failure is typically the precursor to success, in my experience, right? They say 2 out of 3 companies fail, 3 out of 4 fail. To me, that means if you're on your 3rd or 4th startup and you failed before that, maybe this is the one, right? Statistically, maybe you're learning and moving yourself into the position to win. Uber was Travis's, I think, 3rd or 4th major company. I knew him when he did Scour. I knew him when he did Red Swoosh. I think Red Swoosh was a $30 million exit. Scour was a $250 billion lawsuit. So he kind of trended in the right direction in that regard. So, and sometimes you have somebody who's a first-time founder. Marco from Thumbtack is first-time founder. So you don't always have the ability to look at their track record. Failure's great. That's okay if you learn from it, and you can have a conversation about what you did learn from it. So if I say, oh, what happened to your last company? We ran out of money. Why'd you run out of money? They explain to you why they ran out of money. You say, okay, that seems reasonable. You were in a space that was unfundable at the time. People didn't want to invest in cannabis 7 years ago because the climate was very different and people felt there were legal issues, right? Okay, it's reasonable that you ran out of money and couldn't find investors. Maybe something has changed now. I like to write down the facts that a founder tells me in a meeting and then have my chief of staff check those facts. This is called due diligence. There's many different types, but I do active due diligence, which is while we're talking, there's somebody there, sometimes with their laptop open taking notes, sometimes just taking notes in a book. And one time I had somebody, and I go into it in the book, had somebody say, well, we did a trial at this restaurant. It was software for restaurants. I thought it was pretty clever. It was for ordering at your table. And I said, my God, this is such a good idea. This beacon technology is awesome. You put this little beacon under the table, you take out your phone, it knows you're at table 7. You take out the phone, you open the web browser, you're on the Wi-Fi, it automatically directs you to order more food and it knows what table you're at. You don't have to install an app. Wow, sounds pretty cool, right? Okay, now I say I want more French fries and they're gonna bring them and add them to our check. Wow, this is incredible. And they said, oh yeah, no, we had a really successful trial at this restaurant. Great. So I think I want to fund this company. So I tell my chief of staff at the time, Bryce, 2 years ago, why don't you go to the restaurant and try the software? Tell me what you think. I don't have time to go out, but you go. Let's keep this moving. Calls them, says, hey, we're going to go down and try all the software at the restaurant. You want to meet me there? The guy's like, oh, the pilot's not going right now. The pilot's not going right now, okay. Can we talk to the manager who did the pilot? And maybe we just get some background. It's like, well, the manager actually doesn't know about the pilot we did. And they said, I don't understand. And he said, well, when we say we piloted it, we went to the restaurant, we put the beacon on the table, and we opened the software, we had loaded the menu on the website, and we tested that it worked. We said, well, that's not a pilot. That's, you loaded your website, and no, that's not exactly how it works. It was kind of really shady. So I said, you know what, tell them we're out. It's not a fit for us. They subsequently had gone to a couple of my friends and said, Jason's committing to the deal, he's in due diligence. Oops. Then my friend called me and said, hey, you didn't do the deal, I just sent my check, what happened? I said, well, we found things in due diligence that didn't make it a fit for us, but you should talk to the founder about it, because I don't want to kill the founder's chances, I'll let him deal with it. And they're like, okay, we talked to them, they admitted what happened, it was a mistake, they're first-time founders, they didn't, whatever, will you still come in? I said, absolutely not. Life is short. I can't deal with somebody who's not going to be straight with me, to your point for your earlier question. So this is super important stuff. And due diligence, people do it different ways. Some people do background checks, et cetera. But failure in the past, I mean, this is Silicon Valley where people, I think, celebrated maybe a little bit too much. I see people giving up. They're like, yeah, couldn't find product market fit. We've got 3 months left in the bank. And yeah, we're going to just pay everybody 6 weeks severance. We're going to give everybody their MacBook Pros because, they did take the chance to come here and work for a year. And yeah, we're going to return if there's anything left. I'm like, can I get one of the MacBook Pros since I bought them? I don't know. Pretty crazy. Yeah, so it's a good question. What would you like to do, Ado? Do you want me to take more questions, read a chapter,
let's do
or pitches?
one more question, then
Okay.
I'd love to get some pitches up there.
Go ahead. We'll wait for a question. Wait forever. Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, everybody, big round of applause if you watch This Week in Startup. Thank you.
Can I just throw something out? I attended Jason's last launch conference. How many of you were there?
Oh, very nice. I'm glad you came.
Good.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Well
Thank you.
done, my friend.
Thank you. Takes a team. It's a team effort. Okay.
One of the biggest tech events in America today, if not the biggest.
Okay.
Hi, this is Govin, founder of Bridge 18. We are a startup that helps small trucking companies manage their entire business on our platform. We have application and services as well.
I remember.
So I
pitched
pitched to
me
you.
before.
Oh, yeah, how you doing?
Enterprise software for
Yes,
trucking companies.
Trucking companies, yeah.
Yep.
So my question is, these days I'm seeing a lot of people are doing landing pages and painted door testing, and they're lying about their product, that they have a finished product on their website. They have great marketing campaigns and so. How seriously do you take that data? And are angels still taking that data serious at all?
It's a little bit of signal. It's a little bit of data. So we're referring to the landing page technique that we see from the lean startup, which is if I was going to create software that was for people who ran nursery schools, and they wanted to charge people who are nursery school administrators to use this software for applications and whatnot, can we make a landing page that says the software exists in the world, email 100 people who run nursery schools and see if those administrators sign up to try it or to take a tour, even though the software is not built. It's some signal. It's cheap signal. And it could start a conversation. I don't think it will close an investment today. I think it's just triangulation. So always founders are trying to find that product market fit. And if you can put up a landing page and nobody says they'll pay for it and nobody gives you your email address, you can be pretty sure that nobody wants that product. Unless it's some fantastical product that people can't even conceive of knowing they want, right? So there are products that are so fantastical and crazy that, photo filters, if you put out, hey, you can change the filters on your photos, do you want this in an app? I don't know if many people would have said yes, but people are addicted to doing this behavior now. Or if you describe to somebody augmented reality and putting filters on a live video and putting a crown of flowers on their head, they never say like, yeah, I want that. But we have hundreds of millions of people putting flowers on their head every day. So there are some things that it doesn't work for, but it does put you into the bucket of you read Lean Startup, you're trying to collect data, you're trying to be considerate about your business. Not, I want to have lunch with you to tell you about my ideas and let me tell you how much I'm going to crush it. There's too many fakers in startup land. There's too many people playing the role of founder today. If it was 10 years ago, angels were looking for people to invest in. We're trying to find the founders. Now, the balance is totally off. There's just too many projects and there's not enough investors, so we're all crushed trying to just sort through it. So what does a person who's got too many opportunities do? They look for ways to quickly disqualify. How can I quickly disqualify a person for this role in the world? Okay, it's a basketball player. Okay, Jeremy Lin, Spud Webb, Nate Robinson, you're 5'5", you're 5'8", you're under 6 foot, you're not right for basketball. And so there's a blind spot that was created in the NBA that people who are too short couldn't play, and then you have some people who became, big game changers who were maybe not prototypical, right? Or Steph Curry would be another person who was very easy to say, like, this guy's too small and lanky. There's no place for this person in the NBA. They're just going to get bruised and beat up by Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, and everybody else. You need more centers and power forwards, not these little tiny, scrawny guards. And then all of a sudden, those scrawny, tiny guards change the league, right? So there can be blind spots that are created, but You have to understand the market in which you're operating. That's one of the biggest mistakes of founders. They're not present, which you all put your laptops away. You all have not been looking at your phone. How interesting has this session been because of that? Not if you think this has been more interesting. Has it been more interesting because you're not on your device? And you're thinking about what I'm saying, and you're thinking of a good question. You're present. This is how you can operate in your life. This does not have to be just for your hour with me. This is how you need to be as a founder. You need to lower the distraction and understand what is important. The great companies do very small number of things incredibly well. You cannot do a small number of things incredibly well unless you are a present person, unless you are focused, unless you are thinking deeply about your customer. But everybody wants to go on the Founder Death March. Everybody wants to go to Summit at Sea or Web Summit or Summit somebody, and they want to get selected for 40 under 40 or 30 under 30. There's no reason to go to these things or pay to go to them. If you go to the launch festival, you got there for free and you got to meet some angel investors, maybe. You have to have some purpose, right? Some reason to do these things. But people are very easily distracted. I'm looking for founders who only care about their customers and are relentless in where and ruthless, really, about where they put their attention.
So I had just one follow-up question on that, and then I'd like to do some hot seats. And sorry to steal your question.
You can ask me later.
Which is, if you talked a lot about the person, you talked a lot about the data, but you didn't really talk about the idea. And so, but I've seen a lot of the things you've invested in, and they're pretty interesting ideas. They're not like run-of-the-mill things. Uber, certainly, there was no other Uber, right? Right, there's no CafeX was another great example. Even the robotics company in your Ready, in the GetReady.io, there's no other Ready right now. No. And so you talked about all these other things, but you didn't talk about the idea. And so maybe if you could just give, because there are some interesting ideas here that I haven't seen before. How does the idea factor into your? So if everybody, I have a theory, not everybody agrees with it. My theory is if everybody understands the idea, it's not a good idea. It's not going to be a groundbreaking idea. I'm looking for ideas that 60 or 70 or 80% of the population go, that'll never work. And I squint and go, yeah, just like in poker, if I have a 10% chance of hitting my flush or my straight and hitting runner or some really small odds, and we're playing in a very deep stacked poker game, and I think, God, if I do hit this, it's going to return so much more because you're never going to see it coming that I was playing 3-5 and I hit my gutter ball and boom, all your chips come to me when you hit your set or you've got aces. Happens all the time. This is what really, to have outsized returns, you have to be willing to have a lot more startups fail. And so I introduced Uber to over 20 people and 3 said yes. That to me is about the right ratio. When I email an idea around it, everybody wants to invest. I get, ooh, everybody understands this idea. Wait, does it exist in the world? Is it too obvious to be really interesting? CafeX and Blockable are 2 recent ones I did in my incubator in the last year or so. One of them is doing, Blockable is essentially housing as a service, sort of the Tesla of housing, have a bunch of robots build houses and then bring them to locations and build housing in a third the amount of time. And you can put 4 of them together and then 6 months later add a 5th and 6th, and 3 years later have more people in your family or your business and add 2 more. They're not containers, but they are modular in that way. And CafeX was a robotic coffee machine made with an arm. And they had made one of them. And I said, wow, that's incredible. Is it real? And they said, yes, it's real. And I said, well, is it a joke? And they said, no, it's not a joke. And I said, great, come to my incubator. And said, how do you get in? And I said, you just did. And they said, we're in Hong Kong. I said, get on a plane. They did. They raised millions of dollars from Khosla, from Social Capital. And now they have one in the Metreon, and it works. And the NPS scores are off the roof. And it costs, let's say, 80% less for rent and staffing than a Starbucks or Phil's. So anytime you can cut the top cost by 80%, and have people happier, oh my God. But people 2 years ago were like, robotic cafe, that's dumb. Now everybody's like, can I get in the next round?
So I see this over and over again in my career. Something is dumb, then it's intriguing, then it's obvious. That's really stupid. That's interesting. That's obvious. It happens over and over. Airbnb. You're going to rent your spare bedroom. Somebody's going to stay in your couch. You can stay in the same house as me with a serial killer, meth head. I'm going to be raped, murdered. The place is going to get lit on fire. Are you fucking crazy? I would never do that. Can I invest? Like literally the arc of Airbnb's nose was 40 notes. Brian wrote that incredible email and he started posting all the incredible Medium posts about nobody would invest. And then all of a sudden the numbers started hitting and everybody wanted to invest. Things go very quickly from dumb to intriguing to obvious in our business. I like to look at dumb things that seem outlandish or crazy, and I just think, well, here's all the list of reasons of why it won't work, but here's a couple of reasons of why it might. Right? And the list of why something will not work is obviously always greater than the list of reasons of why it will work. There's a million reasons of why, Steph Curry is not going to be the best player in the league. And there's like 2 reasons over here that it might work. Well, what if he shoots more threes than anybody and the ball movement is ridiculous and he plays with other people who can hit threes too at a higher rate than everybody else? Yeah, that's never going to happen. Where are you going to find 3 guys who can shoot 38% from 3? And where are you going to find NBA stars who are willing to whip the ball around and they don't care who scores? Those 2 things could never happen until they did. And now the whole NBA has got to change. And it's like, oh yeah, Carmelo Anthony is worthless. He's an isolation player. Oh my God, Dwight Howard is worthless. He's a big center. He's dumb. He can't move the ball. He hogs the ball. The whole NBA just flipped just over this little tiny chance that, hey, if we move the ball around really fast and we have these really high percentage shooters who can shoot, and we just let them shoot. Because shooting a 3, you had to get permission. You used to have permission from your coach to hit a 3. There were only 5 guys in the league who had permission. And they're like, yeah, fuck it. Everybody shoot 3s. Let's just see what happens. Right? It's D'Antoni and Steph, Steven, Anyway, somebody just had this brilliant insight. And I was like, yeah, let's just play Moneyball and see if you can get paid 50% more for shooting a 3. If these guys can hit them like a 2. Now the Rockets will not shoot between a dunk and a 3-pointer. They're just like, oh yeah, everything in between, which was the entirety of the experience of basketball, that middle ground, they're not allowed to do it in Houston. They're like, if you dunk the ball or you do a layup, great. If you hit a 3 or if you hit a half-court shot, great. So much has changed that they're talking about putting a 4-point play in, and they're talking about getting rid of the corner 3s because it's too easy. They're talking about just getting rid of them. You're going to just have the 3-point line starts 5 feet back. That's how much things can change. That's how believing in trying something. That's the beautiful part about being an angel investor and entrepreneur is, of course, negative people are going to just say, this will never work, it'll never work. I like the people who try. Try and fail, sure, but maybe you learn something. Okay.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do some hot seats. Let's give a big round of applause for Jason. Sure. Call him up. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the other mentors come on up. Nitin in the back. Gagan, please take a seat. Now, we have a special guest who happens to have her birthday today. Our leader of the North Africa MENA region, who also is our director in Tunisia, who also has a birthday today, will be joining us on the hot seat today. Emna, woo! Happy birthday. So I'm going to call 2 female mentors and one founders and 1 male founder up. Just so happens that's what the system says. So we're going to use our usual hot seat system, Jason, which you may recall. You don't have to do it, but I would prefer if you did. And for whatever reason, we don't have the rating cards, so we're going to use hands. 5 is awesome. 1 is bad. No 3s. So I'm going to give a minute, and we've got 4 of you, so I'm going to limit it because we want to do 3 for the camera. So we'll try and keep feedback to about 5 minutes in total. So maybe a couple sentences of just brutally honest feedback from each of you. Now, there's a mic for the camera, so the 3 of you can share because I believe Jason's mic'd. are you ready to go? And I'll start the timer. Do you want a mic?
I was thinking that.
All right, so big round of applause. Barbara, woo!
Barbara. Yeah.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi. My name is Barbara Timbrock, and I'm CEO of eTrack. One cold February night, my baby and I almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning in a building that had a broken HVAC system. If eTrack had been installed, it would have predicted the problem, generated a work order, and it could have been fixed. In buildings all over the world, from preschools to convenience stores, and broken equipment like HVAC and all sorts of other stuff, from freezers to forklifts, they create havoc for managers, cost, inefficiency, and a pain in the you-know-what. And I know this because I ran facilities for all those businesses. For the cost of, and break fixes cost a lot of money, 4 to 10 times more than proactive maintenance. So for the cost of one break fix, we can install eTrack and provide predictive maintenance that could save 20% or more in those buildings. We take real-time data and we're using IoT hardware and turn it into an app for managers and technicians. It can create trackable repairs and also asset management, saving money and potentially saving lives.
Good job. Now, do we want to rate them 1 to 5? You guys
You're
ready?
saying no threes, right?
No threes. Hand in there. 1, 2, 3. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Oh, that's pretty awesome. I want to keep it to about 5 minutes of feedback so we can get through 3. But if you want to go, who wants to go first? Jason, you want to go first?
It's very strong. I have a microphone, I think I should. Oh, sorry. It's a very strong pitch. It was clear what you did. So you told a story. It was personal. There were 2 moments in which it was personal. This is always good when you're explaining a product. The first moment that was personal was you and your baby almost died. The second was that you actually managed facilities. So you built credibility twice, right? It's a personal problem and you've got some domain expertise. It led to me having a flurry of questions, which is a good thing for you. Because I said, oh, I have an investment in Birdie. They manage carbon dioxide. It's hardware. It's IoT. How much does it cost? You kind of got out that cost by saying less than this. But you should have just said the business model, where a SaaS business model is $15 a month. And we would have just known. Or it's an IoT device. You plug it in. So we're left to wonder what it is exactly. And there was only one moment where it really wasn't clear for me, which is this for consumers to not die? Or is it for businesses to know that there's a forklift that somebody left on and it's idling in the garage? And it led me to say, oh, I know when I rented a house, they had to put carbon monoxide plugs everywhere because you can live in one without them, but you can't rent a house without putting them in San Francisco. So it just got me thinking, wow, but those things cost $15 at the grocery store, and you buy them at Dwayne Reed or the whatever store. So is there really a business here or not? So in a short pitch format, which was a minute or 2,
1 minute.
1 minute, you did an extraordinary. I give the pitch a 5 because to get that much information and that much intrigue into a pitch in 1 minute is extraordinary.
Who wants to go next? Birthday girl, maybe?
Sure, yeah, I could go. So I actually loved the story, right? Loved how you were like structuring everything. I could follow you, right? You were a bit stressed, but that takes a lot of practice. So I was like, and never learn a pitch by heart. And I could tell that because you were like, when you switched, you kind of like went back. And so I'm talking about the pitch part, but you did an amazing job. The part that's not clear for me, I agree with Jason on some parts, but also I didn't understand if this is like a new revolutionary thing, like it doesn't exist already. So I would have loved to know more about the competition, even like in 2 words, right? Like, okay, we're not the first one there, or we're the first one there, or whatever that, however you can say it. And the other part is, how big is the market? Like from a money perspective, you didn't say that part. And that's important, right? I want to know, like, is this the one thing I need to be on right now? Or, okay, cool, it might work, might not. So, but yes.
So I will echo great pitch. Good balance of wow versus less how, which is perfect for short pitches, is more wow, less how. If there's anything to improve, I would say just continue to write one thing which Jason hinted on. Just if it's about saving lives, save lives, and we can save money later. If it's about making money, let's make money and save lives later. But let's just do one thing.
Yeah, I would have given the pitch a 5. I thought the price point, at least based on what you discussed, sounded really high. So the cost of a break, which is the higher of the two costs, 4 or 5x, to me, that sounded like a real red flag. And that was really honestly, I agree with everything everyone here said. But that would have been my big question and would have given me a 5 if I thought the business model was amazing. But instead, I was like leaning to a 2 because I was like, this sounds kind of ridiculously expensive. And people don't spend a lot of money on predictive maintenance. The problem is people don't usually want to do it, even though they should do it.
Your job in this case, in this kind of format, or even in an elevator, is to just try to intrigue the person enough to get a meeting. So that's the way I look at these. A lot of times when we do these kind of formats in events and demo days and et cetera, people are like, oh my God, people didn't understand my business, or oh my God, I missed these marks, I stumbled, whatever it is. That's actually not the goal. All you want to do is intrigue the person enough so that you can say, thank you so much for your time. Jason, I'd love to follow up with you and send you our sales chart and our pipeline. It's amazing. And you want to try to get me to say yes.
I like to compare it to when you date someone, right? So when you go on a first date, you don't tell them your life story. You want to impress them until you get to the second date. Think about it that way. If you were to meet a boy, what would you want to tell him to ask you on the second date? So
no, maybe just to get the first one.
No one wants to know my life story. All right, thank you very much. All right, so before we go too far dating, we're going to do 2 more. I'm not stepping on your device.
No, it's okay.
Susan is next. You want to come on up? And this is a weird setup because, let me ask you guys, do you prefer what Barbara did, which is pitching you, or do you prefer her pitching them?
Whatever the founder prefers.
There you go. It's right from Jason. All right, so 1 minute on the clock. When you're ready, let's get going.
No line, no problem. As a restaurant customer with parents who own restaurants, I have seen firsthand how waiting in line can lead to frustration and the loss of valuable customers. Hello, my name is Susan, and my company MunchPass is developing a mobile application to help restaurant customers get priority access to their favorite restaurants through a membership program. For a small fee every month, restaurant customers who love food but hate waiting can skip the line and start enjoying their meal. The restaurant industry is huge. There are over 600,000 restaurants in the US. Unfortunately, 90% of restaurants have waiting times, and 30% of restaurant owners report that these waiting times are getting longer. And 30% of restaurant customers actually say they have stopped using or going to a restaurant altogether because of long waiting times. Yet there's no solution to this problem. The mission of MunchPass is to make sure that restaurant customers have an enjoyable dining experience. Our simple yet powerful solution can ensure that restaurant customers save time and have an enjoyable dining experience while also helping restaurants to grow their businesses and attract more customers. Thank you.
You guys ready? Jay, everyone, on 3. 1, 2, 3. 2's across the board. I get that, man. Is that a 3? Why don't we start in the middle now? Maybe Gagan, because you work in the food service business, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're a great speaker. It was very clear, understood what you were saying. For me, the big challenge was that I already understand this problem, and I already understand that there are many people attacking it in various different ways. And so the pitch was like 80% about the problem and about how you're attacking it, but I don't know that I cared that much. What I personally, as a potential investor or advisor or whatever, am interested in is what differentiates you, what makes you special from the competition. Very different from the last pitch, where honestly, I don't think, again, personally, I don't think a lot about carbon monoxide poisoning. But I think everyone can relate to your product. And as a result, you want to focus your time on differentiation, business model, and traction.
Okay. I would definitely, I so much agree with you and emphasize even more and know your audience. You're in San Francisco, a food city. Like we all know lines. You shouldn't spend more than 5 seconds on that. And for me, there was no wow factor. Like, what is it that's different about you that's going to solve this problem? And you did say there's no solution. So what makes you that special that you're going to find that solution? I actually saw a lot of people, because I mentor so many startups here in the city, like who try to solve that with sensors and many other ways. How are you going to manage capacity in the restaurants? How are you going to do all these kind of things? So really like cut most of the time of the problem and go more into what makes the wow factor there. And then you go, of course, in everything he said, like the business model and traction.
Yeah, I think nothing stood out. I mean, this is like I'm hearing this for the 200th time. Yeah. I told Adeo food delivery or food management is the new photo sharing. This was like a year ago.
So you guys do food delivery?
I know, but this was like a year ago, right? And so there's nothing new. So you got to find that new, and you should only talk about that uniqueness. Everything else is already explained and understood. Jason.
Yeah, it's what you're going to hear from people is certain categories. The well's been poisoned, and so nobody wants to go to that well. It happened to dating after Tinder and Match.com. It happened to on-demand after Sprig, Instacart, Uber. It was a very challenged space. And so if you came to somebody and said, I'm going to be the next Instacart or the next Sprig, it would be like, oh, those businesses have had challenges, and isn't that impossible to make it work, right? It's hard. It's super hard. So investors get tired. So you're coming into a space where investors are very exhausted. They've heard too many pitches, too many people trying to do it. And so I think that's the reaction you're getting. Now, how do you deal with that as an entrepreneur? That's what you want to know. And so to get a little meta here, since you already got the sort of negative part of it, I'll give you something a little constructive, which is they want to believe that you could figure out lines, but you didn't convince them. So how do you convince them that you have the nuts? How did you didn't convince them that you have something unique in the world? So if you started and said, hi, I'm Jason, I am with Line Busters. We have a very simple way to help restaurants deal with the line issue and make regulars happy. It's very simple how we do it. People commit ahead of time to buying a certain amount per person in the restaurant, regardless of how much food they order, and they will get a premium seat reservation. Now, this may seem unfair to you, but in a town like San Francisco, it actually is unfair to some restaurants that people sit there for 4 hours, they don't order dessert, they don't order wine, and they split entrees. The per seat amount is the key issue, and so what we do is help them manage that. And the way they do that is they save 4 tables, and we've done testing, and of those 4 tables they've done per night, those tables on average are doing $60 per head. Their average in the restaurant's $40. So we don't ask them for all their tables, we just ask them for 4 a night, just 5% of their inventory. And we tell them we'll give them 50% more money per cover, guaranteed, on 10% of their inventory. It actually winds up being their profit margin every night, because restaurants run at a 10% profit margin, and we make those 4 tables make them 8% more money, giving them an 18% profit margin. Now, how interested are you guys?
Much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
So that's where, like, getting into the weeds of the how. I love that, by the way, the wow and the how. The how is where you couldn't convince them. There's no wow in the space, only pain and suffering in the restaurant space.
Oh yeah, I don't know that I had. I mean, I just think in Jason's pitch too, it was his first time doing it. You can see how well he nailed it. I would even say like the last third of it was really the part that was the meat for me. So like even in that situation, I would be like, cut out the first 2/3 or maybe cut it in half and then focus. Because when you started talking about the margins and everything else, I was like, yeah, I'd sell that to a restaurant in a heartbeat. That's when I got interested.
Wow, I was kind of riffing. It's like a jazz musician. I was like, we got to figure out a hook here. And I got the hook.
All right, well, let's go. We got one more. We're doing three. Last but not least, for you with the scores and everyone in the audience, is Scott. Welcome, Scott, to the stage. Now, you got a minute. We've been doing well on time, and then we'll take a little break so that people can talk.
and other things. Are you guys ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So before even we go, I'll make it, since we're on camera, I want to say this. It's the second week of the program. So I'm pretty nutted out about how well they're doing. I mean, we got a bunch of grads in. I'm like, second week of the program, and these guys are actually holding up pretty well. I mean, for people who've mentored a lot, usually it's not so good. May the force be with you. I'm not jinxing you at all. But,
Way to jinx him.
It's strong.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
My name's Scott Valentine. I want to update bedside manner for the 21st century. So we're looking at a big problem in healthcare right now where doctors are continuously being flagged for not being empathetic towards their patients. What can we do to solve this problem? With VR technologies, we're understanding how we can very quickly and very cost efficiently make it available for doctors to become their patients, to then understand where they're coming from, understanding then how to quickly mitigate their fear and become a better doctor in the process. When we think about medical education, we think about the long hours, the residencies, the fellowships, but what we're missing throughout that entire process is the human interaction. I want to solve that problem. I want to make sure that our doctors, the 800,000 that are practicing today in the United States, become the ones that they wanted to be when they took the Hippocratic Oath. Thank you.
That was a nice ending. Oops, sorry. On three. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. That might be a case where a 3 would be warranted.
2.5.
2.5, yeah.
2.7.
First.
Yes. So I happen to be really passionate about VR and build VR experiences and done a lot in it. And it's so funny to be that you're solving a human problem and human interaction with something that's opposite to that. So, and the first thing when you started talking, I was like, okay, simple. I like it, straight to the point. But then you went into residency and hours, and I was like, I want to know more on how this works. How are we going to do this? And that's like when you are pitching something about something that's still this new, because this is a tech bubble again, right? So like VR is still very new. So I want to understand, like, what are you doing? Because for me, the way I thought about it is like, okay, so the doctor will use it one time and that's it. They're going to understand how people are sitting in their beds, or like, you know, like you did something that's good. Like Jason said, I want to ask more questions, but you didn't do it enough to get me interested. I'm like, okay, this is just, you know, something, but I don't know if you have the right expertise to make it happen.
So I will say what I like about this is it's kind of like flying. Nobody likes it, and most people don't like their doctor interactions, and you're trying to fix that. So there's an immediate attention that you'll grab because everybody's been in that position. Now, this is where customer discovery or customer development was the topic for today. This is where you should speak in your customer's voice a little bit, your customer being the doctor. The first thing as an investor that I look at, because again, I'm tainted, is doctors are very hard to adopt anything tech. They don't like to do that. First part of adopting that is admitting that my bedside manners are not good. I'm not good with my patients, which is a very hard thing to accept for a doctor. And so if you had thrown in any data point, we've interviewed 30 doctors and they're really excited about this, that would have changed the flavor. I would have been 5 instead of 4 in that situation. So try to speak in your customers' voices a little bit, especially if you've gone through that customer development process.
Yeah, I mean, again, all three of you were just fantastic speakers, and that's one of the core challenges of pitching. And I think all three of you gave clear, concise messages. I understood exactly what your product was. I also liked your pitch on the hot seat. Not everyone else had one, but I got it. For me, the challenge was that I'm not sure I understand why VR is helpful to solve the problem you're trying to solve. And I actually think of it as the reverse, that traditionally, like, solving learning challenges don't get solved by technology. That learning challenges get solved by educational advances mostly in psychology. And in this particular case, in psychology, sorry. In other cases, it could be something different, like math wouldn't be psychology. But in this case, I would be like, how do you teach a doctor how to have better bedside manner? I don't see why VR might help. You might be able to prove it. So if you could, for example, in the pitch say, hey, we've done this with 10 doctors and it has reached this, it has had this success rate, then my second question is, how do you make money? Because I don't know enough about med schools, but I don't know if they even spend money on bedside manner. And so those are sort of the two questions I have coming out of this. Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I honestly have I use One Medical. Anytime I leave One Medical into another doctor's office, I want to punch my eyeballs out. Like and One Medical isn't great, but it's way better, right? So, that's a customer for you though, by the way. One Medical could be an interesting customer for you. I think they care. My other co-founder at Udemy started Carbon, which I think is going to have the same idea. So, I would go after those two things, and maybe your pitch would get a lot better, I think.
So it's it must be very early for you. Have you built this product yet, or is it just in an idea phase?
I've built two scenarios.
You built two scenarios, yeah. So I think great feedback from the judges. You intrigued people, but you didn't have like a unique insight. We can all agree, like, we don't like people who are gruff. We want people to be nicer. But it's not like a super hard problem, and none of us were convinced that VR was a solution to it. So you have this huge disconnect where you identified a problem that none of us really think is a huge problem. It's kind of like this little thing, like, yeah, we wish they were a little bit better, and yeah, we're gonna punch our eyes out, but we're still gonna go to the doctor, even if we're sick, to get our prescription. And then VR was just sort of like, when you said, and I do it through VR, I was like, it was like the record scratch, like, I was like, why VR? I don't understand. You never got that why. Why now? Why VR? And in fact, I started thinking about it, and I started talking myself out of your startup. I was like, wait a second. Bedside manner is probably a function of the fact that they have too many customers and not enough time with each one, and there's probably not enough doctors, and there's not enough money, and they're under too much pressure. So maybe we're just like blowing the smoke, and we're not like looking at what the fire and the reason they have bad bedside manner is. I couldn't figure it out. And that's really your job as the entrepreneur. So what I think you have to do is go back to the drawing board on this whole presentation and say, here is my unique insight in the world. Because it was great. I felt like you have this passion to fix bedside manner, but there's no unique insight. And you have to make that connection between the unique insight. VR increases people's empathy. We all know that. If you've put this on, it can really let you know what it's like to be on the other side of the table. We put doctors into surgery. We laid them on a table. We let them experience getting open heart surgery from the patient's perspective. And when they're in there and they see the knives coming, they realize, wow, it's truly scary. We had one doctor tell us, I never realized when I was moving too fast and not describing the items. So we showed them that when you're looking up, you should identify each item and say why you're using it. Once they did this, their anxiety went down. And the way we did this with a doctor was we put a dentist into heart surgery, we put a heart surgeon into a dentist chair. And we let them have the experience that their customers have. Once they have that experience and they can see and feel that perspective, they actually change their behavior. When we did it, behaviors changed that 97% of people started describing what each step in the operation was. 97%, up from 60%. So these are big numbers that will reduce anxiety and increase the net promoter score of hospitals. And hospitals are in competition with each other now. We have hospitals like One Medical, and people are starting to have just coverage for extreme cases, and they're actually making their own decision, and they're becoming customers and consumers now, and they're actually paying for their own medical. So this is becoming a pressing issue for the healthcare industry.
Let me add one additional thing that I would say is like the worst thing that you can have happen as a founder is what he described. So there are two scenarios that happen with people listening to your pitch. One scenario is they're like, that's interesting. Wow, I could see myself using that. Oh, wow, that's really cool. Or that's really dumb. I don't think that makes any sense. And so what you want to be super careful of is you can start one of those two narratives in your audience's mind, and you want to be damn sure that it's not the bad narrative of like why this won't work, but the good narrative of like why this could work. But I will say one thing to his credit is your last comment was the best one, which is like, I want to get back to why the doctors took the Hippocratic Oath in the first place, which is to care for patients. And I think that was really resonating, but lost in the, you really want to.
I think Jason is a living proof of why storytelling is huge in pitches, and why what I tell my founders all the time is you gotta always bullshit your way through as long as you have something solid behind it. And he's very strong at that for sure. So definitely learn from that. So
I think that was a compliment. I think it was.
No, you were incredible. Come on, he was incredible in the pitch. But but the tip though for everyone is your pitch was very short. Yet there were a lot of missing elements. So when you get a minute, use the minute. Maximize your time, because that opportunity, you don't get it twice. And this is for everyone. I want you to leave with that. And so you can take all the comments and incorporate them in your pitch. That's it.
So I'll leave you with some final thoughts as well. We're not done for the night, but we'll take a small break. What I'd like to say is I was very proud of you for getting up and pitching, and you should really take the opportunity whenever you can, no matter whether you're shy or your idea isn't fully baked, seize the opportunity to share your idea with your peers, with amazing mentors, and get as much feedback as possible. Because one of the biggest misconceptions that I still see permeating the world today is people are afraid to talk about their idea, afraid to reveal details. I'm sure all of you see this when people come to you and say, well, I can't tell you about that because it's kind of our secret sauce. And I'm sure that's a huge turnoff to you, because you're like, hey, you're asking me for money, you're asking me for this, and you're not willing to share with me some basic stuff.
It's a fast one.
No, yeah, you don't share with me, I don't share my money with you. So, take the opportunity. We're going to take a little break. We're all here, so...
Solution for that. If you ever get in a situation where you're in a public forum and you're pitching, but you don't want to disclose the information, they ask you, hey, so what's your revenue per user and what's your margin? Say, Jason, that's a great question. Obviously, in a public forum, I don't want to give out some of our competitive advantages, but it is our secret sauce, and I would love to tell you and get your feedback on it. If there's any way we could just meet for 20 minutes, I'll meet you anywhere in the next 30 days. You tell me which day, I'm there. So you basically turn that into like, I'm savvy enough not to do it here. I understand we're in a public forum. Let me try to get that second meeting. Because in dating, the two things that determine who you marry most in the world are proximity and frequency. This is why people who are in Brooklyn, when they did these studies in the early days of psychology, found that people who were on the same bus route were getting married at a higher frequency. They're like, wow, the B4 bus is causing people to fall in love. And it's like, no, they just see the same person on the bus every day and they fall in love with them, and then they finally get the gumption to say hello, right? Frequency, proximity. If you're here in Silicon Valley and you frequently see somebody and you're in proximity to them, the chances of you consummating the deal could go up.
All right, let's take a break. Big round of applause.